Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Cyber Guild webinar. Our virtual employer roundtable today's topic is how employers are hiring top-tier talent, and we have Brian Correia from SANS moderating this panel for us. So, Brian, I'm going to hand it over to you.
All right. Well, thank you for having me. So I was going to say good afternoon to everybody on the East Coast. Good morning to everybody on the West Coast. But today's going to be a really exciting day. I'd love for you, if you see on the audience chat, I'd love to hear the questions. Our goal over here is I have a series of questions I can always ask this three esteemed speakers that we have, but I'd love to hear from the audience and kind of take it from there. So I am going to do some quick introductions. So we got 𝘁𝗵𝗶𝗀 from Amazon. So 𝘁𝗵𝗶, it's nice to see you. Rosa Bolger from IBM. And then we also have 𝘁𝗵𝗶𝗶. Did I say that correct? Because I will admit I'm pretty bad sometimes with names.
Rushmi Hashem or 𝘁𝗵𝗶𝗶𝗃. 𝘁𝗵𝗁.
Okay. From Rogers Catalyst. So I'm going to start off with just kind of like a little bit of an intro. And so I'm going to go in order of what the pictures are. And so all three of the participants here were part of the SANS GIAC workforce report. They did case studies. And the goal out of that was, hey, let's start getting into solutions of what's out there in the cyber workforce. So the idea is, we've always heard the sky's falling, there's not enough workers, there's always all these problems. But we wanted to actually get beyond that and kind of get a little bit more into the solutions. So the idea is we try to find what I consider the top cyber talent managers, which we have 3 here today that I'm just very, very fortunate to have, with different ideas of what they have done. So 𝘁𝗵𝗶, I'm going to start with you a little bit because you're the first one, which is on your case study, you talked a lot about this kind of cyber hospital concept. And, I know we've talked about it off the record. Like, I love this concept, but it was interesting of like what Amazon did as far as building this concept and how it really helped building up the workforce. Do you mind kind of talking a little bit about the concept?
Yeah, as I was speaking with some of the folks when we were doing this report, I was trying to think of a way, an analogy that I thought would best fit our approach to training our talent. And in a teaching hospital was the best one that I had at that time. When I think about what happens in a hospital, you're looking at really high stakes situations, right? You're making decisions in an environment where there's a lot of risk or there is risk involved. And so you really do need to have a certain amount of expertise in order to do so. And nevertheless, every surgeon, every doctor has a day one or has their first day on the job, right? And so at Amazon, what we try to do is we try to use some of the same concepts that you would use in something like a teaching hospital, where we are both upskilling our practitioners through primary sources, training programs and partnerships like SANS and things of that nature, and also giving them hands-on practice under the mentorship and guidance of some of our more senior employees. So we use things like an apprenticeship model or some of our internships, or just a robust really network of mentorships that we have, mentorship opportunities that we have available in order to give people some exposure, some abilities to play and really think big and tinker on things, but do so with the guidance of someone who's been in the field a bit longer.
Appreciate that, 𝘁𝗵𝗶. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to Rosa. So on your case study, you talked quite a bit about crisis management and how this industry, which I have to admit, I think we've all lived through it, have a little bit of a crisis management. And so I would like to just a little bit, if you could talk a little bit of like, what solutions have you done, kind of unique features, how have you kind of tried to solve that problem a little bit?
Thank you for having me, Brian. So on crisis management, we take the same approach that we take on sports events. As you know, IBM hosts quite a bit of sports events, and we need 100% availability, and we need high response. So to do that, what we always do is we do a 150% model. So why? Because then when you need to fix or patch or so, you have these 50% that you can take offline, address it, and put it back on. is the same concept that we use for our cyber staff, and is that we have people around the world. We are in AP, we are in Europe, and we are in the Americas. But we overlap the schedules in such a way that if for some reason somebody had an emergency and is out, or sometimes we do have network crisis in a full city, all of Dallas, or a data center goes down, we have even planned around that. We have planned around resource constraints, regardless if it's people or if it's physical infrastructure. The second thing that we do is burnout. How do you address burnout? It's not something that you can prevent. In the type of work that we have, there's going to be burnout. What we counter do to balance it out is we are very focused on people that are team-oriented. So we can find somebody that is very talented. But if they're not team-oriented, if they're more of individual contributors, that is more about their career path than working as a team, we usually don't select that type of person. We're going to select people that are very team-oriented, that are about learning from others and teaching others. And then we work very hard on creating an environment that attracts talent, but more importantly, retains talent. So we focus a lot on creating a very positive environment where people want to stay because they have built a community around them at work.
And Rosa, I appreciate that. Of course, I'd like to think there's never any stress or crisis management at all in cybersecurity. So as I see some people, I think that's pretty much every day in this industry when it comes to things. So Rushmi, I'm going to move on to you. So what I love about the program that you have set up is there's always talk about how there's
3 months, like one thing.
Oops.
It's already less than $100 a month.
I can hear you.
Okay, I didn't know if that's I'm getting a feedback on that or what.
Sorry.
Oh, I think it's all good.
Okay. Well, hey, Rushmi. So anyway, going back to you, there's always talk in the industry of, hey, there's a 5 million, sometimes I jokingly say 5 billion shortage of workers. Yet people are coming out of the industry and they're not finding jobs. And what I love about your program is you've been hugely successful in getting these people not just jobs, but really, really good jobs, and also building non-traditional candidates into this industry. And I have to tell you, it's always a struggle, but you have figured it out. So I would love on your end, like if you could talk a little bit of like, what's your secret? Like, what have you done? Like, what have you done that has made you super successful? These college candidates are coming out, they're getting not just jobs, but like really, really good jobs.
Thank you, Brian. This is so wonderful to be here to be able to share this. One of the things that we looked at 6 years ago was we started with understanding that, yes, everybody saw the crisis that was coming on the cyber talent, the shortage, the skills gap. And we started from a different place. We acknowledged, yes, the gap is there. Other people are quantifying it. But we wanted to understand who is not represented, who is missing, who are the individuals that are not already thinking about cybersecurity. And when you start with, a problem statement of who is missing, you start to really uncover some great ideas of who can come into the industry. So we wanted to look for individuals who had a passion for learning, passion for technology, passion for problem solving. And we've heard this a lot, right? The transferable skills, but this is going in and looking at a chef who wants to move into tech. And everybody goes, well, what is the chef going to do in here? Well, if you stop and you think and you go, well, the way that this problem statement goes is we look at mid-career adults who want to change their profession because we should not have fixed mindsets. And then who are the individuals who want to make that pivot? And someone like a chef, she can look 10 orders down in a very busy, crisis-oriented, high-stress environment. Then she should be able to look 10 tickets down on a really busy security operations center. And how do you then harness those skills to be able to become cyber ready, cyber professional? Somebody like Rosa was talking about burnout. Right. So somebody who's in a high press situation is already dealing with stress in a manageable way because that is their profession, and they're learning and they're have techniques already. And then you combine that with great training. We partner with SANS. We know that, rapid employments. We wanted rapid training, speed to effectiveness, and speed to rapid employment at the end. And plus, we added our career supports for adults because what we specialize in adult retraining, upskilling. Even though I'm with the university, it is not for the 18 to 24-year-olds. We're looking for the midlife career professional, and that was the shift. The entirety of someone's experience, not just a 4-year degree. They want the fullness of that experience. They want the fullness of your communication skills, your ability to be professional, your ability to be able to address stress, your ability to have change management already in, plus the training, plus the hands-on experience. And we're seeing these changes as the market shifts and the market is changing. The entry-level roles are also evolving. So we're starting to see, that this is a different conversation for a different day. Is there enough entry level roles, and how do people get into them? But we start to pivot our attention to individuals already in the industry. The 1-year to 2-year experience, because we're starting to understand that the shift in the market is also telling us that we need to upskill individuals who have just entered the cyber industry. So we have programming now developed for individuals there who can upskill. And again, with our SANS partners and our GIAC certifications, rapid employment within 15 weeks of training, moving them into net new roles or having promotions in their current workplace or seeing expanded job roles. And it's because we've added in experiences that are hands-on through labs or our cyber range. And to Sharifa's point, about the hospital concept, we have a clinic, a cyber clinic that we're just launching where individuals are going to be helping non-for-profits. So our students are actually going to become consultants and mentors. And now on their resume, they have real world experience in a very short period of time that they can go and now take to an employer. So I think we just have to start to look at who do we train, who is missing, what do employers look for, and what is that speed to effectiveness? And then look at this as a continuum that has to keep changing and evolving. And employers need to appreciate how, schools such as ours are responding to the labor market needs.
And Rushmi, I really do appreciate that because it is interesting because sometimes the biggest complaint, and you have solved that problem, is, hey, schools aren't keeping up with the times. And that's something I think that you have done and you've built really, really well. And it's interesting because I know we did a study a couple of years ago of who made the best pen testers. And actually it was high school teachers. So, but the funny thing about high school teachers is they think outside of the box. But that would, normally when you think of a pen tester, you think of a guy in a hoodie who's 20 something, not your high school teacher, right? So it was interesting of how a high school teacher could become a pen tester and do it and actually do it really, really, really well. So, I love how you're kind of thinking outside the box. I know United Airlines, they were actually taking airline mechanics, made great people in cybersecurity because they like to tinker. They're used to that mindset. They like to figure out what they need to do, things along those lines. And so I love how you are trying to do that. And it is interesting because I am hearing a reoccurring theme a little bit, which is, hey, this industry is a high stress. You have to have a lot of flexibility. That's
right.
So I am going to go ahead and move on to just, this is some fun stuff that came from our workforce report. Just not not to focus on it, but there was some interesting things. So one of the things that was most fascinating from year one to year two was you always hear how there's a shortage of workers. But last year, for the first time, we heard it wasn't that I didn't have enough workers, that I didn't have enough people with the right skills. And so the numbers are still pretty close, but it did change. And I would love for all three of you just kind of like, are you seeing that yourselves? And why is that happening? Do you think this is a new trend in the industry? It's kind of what your thoughts are on that kind of statistic and take it from there.
I do believe that, if I may try to answer, I do believe that there are more resources available. Obviously, you know, the unemployment percentages always helps find resources more quickly. So the current market is easier to find resources. I do believe that the most important thing when you're looking for resources is curiosity. Are there people that they're curious? I have one of the best talented leaders that I have on the SOC is a person that used to do pest control. So he was very much used to do to solve a problem. So he can apply the same. And as long as you have a learning path, skill developments within your team, what we have noticed is that some of the most successful people are those that, where you give them a career opportunity to change, where they went from one market to another market, the apprenticeship program, because they really value the opportunity that has been given to them. So their commitment is very strong. I might say that sometimes it's stronger than the typical person that went for the 4-year degree on cybersecurity. So it's something that I really value on the cyberspace, because many of the people that are in cyberspace are veterans or are people that are very driven about changing in a positive way or influencing in a positive way their community. So cybersecurity is a career of that opens those possibilities. So I think what I love the most about this type of work is the chances of giving second chances to people. The people that you give them second chances in life are some of the most loyal, more committed people that will stay long term with you.
Well, and if it's correct, Rosa, like I know people always ask me like how I got into cybersecurity, but others, like if you look at the SANS faculty, the one reoccurring thing that you will hear is none of them came from cybersecurity. They came from law enforcement. They came from construction. They came from, you'd be surprised. Like none of them had necessarily, and I think some of that was true because there was no path for us, right? I will admit, I'm actually, my background was an event manager where I used to work on shows like the Consumer Electronics Show and stuff. Like that's what I did. Has nothing to do with cybersecurity whatsoever, but I do have a logistics background.
Yeah, I wish some of our professional people with 4-year degrees will learn from the commitment of some of those apprentice people that we have in cybersecurity, because they're not only are super committed to the job that we do, they're also the ones that volunteer the most on extracurricular activities that we have within the company. They're very admirable. And that's the type of people that are willing to go above and beyond, because like you say, the job does require sometimes to be very flexible. I'm very, very impressed by them. My veterans are some of the people that I admire the most within my team.
Now, Sharifa, I know you have a huge staff. You know, it's just a small company called Amazon, but I would love to hear your thoughts of that whole of, is the workforce, we don't have enough people, or is it that we don't have the people with the right skills? Or is it a mixture of both?
I would say from my perspective, it is, we are indexing more heavily on a skill mismatch now, right? Just trying to figure out you know, there was a point in which the industry is relatively young, and I think it's approaching its next phase of development or maturation, which is like now a lot of people want to get into cybersecurity. It is the cool thing to do. It is, people recognize the life-changing income potential of joining this profession. And so I do think that word is spreading. And when that happens, a couple of things occur. You have some really reputable folks who have been in the industry for a while who are providing access opportunities and pathways and development to allow more people to have access. And so now you have a larger pool of talented people seeking those entry-level roles, and you start to get some saturation there. Unfortunately, you also have, because where there's opportunity, there's some predators as well. You also have, right, other folks who launch all sorts of things to get up to try to get folks in this industry as well. So I think what ends up happening is we have a lot of noise at the entry level positions, and large companies, in particular tech companies, from what I'm seeing, are not having as much of an issue now getting entry level talent. That does not seem to be the issue. What we are looking at is that mid-level talent. And so it is really interesting to see career changers who have transferable skills and what that looks like and how we get them into some of these positions. The other thing I'll say, just because we are on a call that, you know, is talking about building up a more robust and inclusive talent pipeline, we also have to learn how to talk about the skills that we do have. So, you know, I think Rosa spoke a little bit about someone who was like in pest control, and then Rushmi had folks as well who've come from like these various backgrounds. Those people had to either demonstrate something or be able to talk about their skills and what they have the capacity to do in a way that was compelling for someone in security to take a chance on them, in order to give them an opportunity to show that they can then show up and go above and beyond. And so, you know, I know that in many cultures, and also it's overly true for women, and many times we don't talk about in an impact-based way. It is not as comfortable sometimes to talk about what you have done. But I do think this is an opportunity, specifically more so when you're talking about those mid-level things, to be thinking about, you know, you may have exposure and skills and transferable skills, communication skills. So much of security is about communication, and your ability to translate maybe technical risk into something that the business can consume in a way that they can take action on. And how are folks thinking about how they're portraying or talking about the work that they have done thus far? What artifacts do they have? Have they built anything? All of those things can potentially get you from a position of looking at entry level to now looking at more mid-level, where we can talk about how we're really nurturing the security talent that we do have so that we can continue to grow an actual pipeline, which is like, now I think we're in that in-between phase, right? There was like a ton of growth in the industry, and like, we're in the wonky phase of figuring out how we're maturing. So there's some gaps that are looking to be filled, but I don't think we're in the space we were probably just a year or two ago, where there was like this talent shortage. I think we are looking at how do we align the skills that currently exist? How do we get talent where it needs to be in a way that is efficient? I mean, how do we make sure people know how to talk about what they do in a way that translates for businesses that have cybersecurity teams or security teams in general?
And so I think Rushmi, she kind of led into some of the work that you do. So I'd love to kind of hear your thoughts and I would be interested to hear actually from all three of you of, hey, is there a shortage these days? Or because sometimes there is talk these days that the market has completely changed here in the last 6 months, and that there's not quite the shortage that was there, like Sharifa, you even mentioned, maybe even 3 months ago, right? Like, you know, and kind of take it from there. But Rushmi, I'd love to kind of hear your thoughts, kind of springing off what Sharifa said.
Yeah, you know, Sharifa, you got it. Like, exactly. Like, the market's shifting. Here in Canada, I'm based in Toronto, and as we look across our national landscape, we had many jobs open, 6 years. We worked really hard, and I think we were very successful in being a great contributor to narrowing, I won't say closing, but narrowing that the skill shortage. But as we start to see economic changes, economic impact, where we're noticing companies, HR managers, hiring managers, even in, human capital planning, what we're seeing is that now there is that greater focus on specialized skills. How do we, right? Because we have a great foundation. We've, from all schools, from different contributors of different individuals who are now in the foundational roles. But as they move up, that movement up requires specialization, and specialization is being dictated with the changes in technology and the changes in the business. So we're seeing a lot of focus coming from, defensive security and incident response will always remain, whether it's the specialization level, but also in that tiered entry level, SOC level 1, 2, 3, and then specializations, digital forensics and threat hunting, right at the top again for specialized skills that are being demanded, cloud security, offensive security, and then something new that we added and we've been trying is industrial control systems and operational technology. And as we're starting to see the shift into advanced manufacturing, the threats that we're seeing across governments and critical infrastructure, it is an area of growth, but it needs to have specialized skills. So as anyone is looking to build their career, take a look at where technology is headed. Take a look and really analyze, like from the reports as well and from our case studies, what is the area that you want to be known for? Where is it that you want to specialize in? Because your entry-level role, your entry-level training has really given everyone a good foundation. But as we heard from Rosa and 𝘁𝗵𝗶, like it's getting saturated. There is a saturation level, and with new technologies that are supporting individuals in those roles, do we need less? That is a conversation that we have to look at as well as we start to look at demand planning. But then the next level, right? Where are the threat vectors? Where is it coming from? What kind of technologies are being adopted? Who's supporting them? Do we have individuals who can support what we're looking to do as a business? What is the mission critical areas for our businesses? And how do we set those areas of specialization for even the next layer of growth and opportunities? And how do we make sure that individuals coming in with those hard technical skills are able to still demonstrate their problem solving, their thinking, their rationale, their ability to communicate, because those are still essential skills. But we are noticing employers are definitely looking for highly specialized people now.
And I was going to say, Rushmi, it's interesting. Like I could think of some good examples over here. Even an example of we have an instructor over here that was involved. She did the digital forensics case on the Idaho murder. She's actually been on like People Magazine. She's been on Good Morning America and stuff like that. But her specialty is mobile forensics. Like she has now become, and she has worked on various cases, anywhere from, she worked on the Bin Laden case. She also worked on, all these various, kind of scary cases that are out there. But it was the digital forensics that they found on the Idaho, where the guy went from saying I'm not guilty to pretty much saying I'm guilty because they had enough evidence on him. But she had some point in her career decided she was going to become very, very specialized in that area. And so it's just kind of an interesting thing. So I'm going to move on to the next question, and I'm going to put Christine's after that, which is, and I think it was 𝘁𝗵𝗶, you're the one that said it. So there's a shift in the air here on the workforce here in cybersecurity. And we kept seeing that again and again and again on the workforce report. So one of the biggest thing is always in the past, work experience was always number one as far as what am I looking for when I'm hiring somebody. It surprised us because I never expected that number ever to change. But it did change, where technical capability came in number one, and number one by quite a bit. And so, sometimes I always use the analogy of, hey, everybody wants to hire LeBron, but there's only one LeBron, right? but I would love to kind of, I don't know who would like to start with this, of like, are you seeing that also of, hey, I don't necessarily need the person with 20 years of experience in blah, blah, blah. You know, there's always a funny joke of there's now job recs out there that say, I need someone with 10 years of experience in AI, which, as you well know, there is nobody with experience in 10 years in AI. But I'd love to kind of hear, who wanted to be the first one to kind of grab this one? But just kind of hear, like, is this just something that was kind of a fluke in the report, or is this kind of the future a little bit?
I'm going to
we
go
were
back
surprised.
I'm going to go back to the point on diversity. Diversity can be used in many ways. And one of them is also on experience. You want some people that are extremely skilled. You also need to be filling your pipeline. So you also need people that are very junior that will build up the skills and stay, right? So it is a pipeline after all. So in my opinion, you shouldn't just go for very specialized people. As long as I have very strong specialized people that can guide more junior people so that I can make it affordable, that I can make it fun, because the curiosity of the people, which I believe is skill number one, is very strong on junior people, right? So I do believe that you have to have a little bit of everything. The foundation for this to work, of having a little bit of everything, is you must have a very strong core skill team, but then you can build around it. So that's the approach that I take. I also believe that curiosity is so needed because the role is constantly changing. The skills that you need is constantly changing. Right now, what I'm doing with the SOC team is I want them to develop stronger SRE skills or system administration skills, because with AI, their skills, the need of what skills they have is going to drastically change. So it has to be people that know how to be adaptable. And I believe that our market is one of the markets that is going to change the most when it comes to what skills are needed within the next 2 years.
Others, any thoughts about this, or?
Yeah, I would agree with Rosa. I think that adaptability is key. And as Rosa's been talking about with curiosity, being intentional is also key. I think the only other thing that I would add to that is the ability to learn in a variety of different formats, right? So there are some times where they are going to be able to take a course or maybe asynchronous learning or something like that in order to internalize and adopt a new skill. But companies are moving fast. Technology is evolving quickly. If they have to wait for the next course to be built to learn something new, they're going to get left behind. So the other thing that we have to be teaching and reinforcing for our employees, which I think is something that we have as one of our leadership principles here in Learn and Be Curious, is the ability to not only learn through formalized training, but to learn by listening to your podcast, by listening to the, Stormcast or reading, the latest news articles that are talking about different cyber attacks, or conversing with your colleague through peer learning. We are trying to, oftentimes learning is considered very structured in the ways that we typically do that. And that is important. Structured learning is important. But right, as a learning and development practitioner, one of the things that I also try to make folks aware about is being intentional about driving their own learning through those other channels and avenues as well, in order to set them up to not fall behind if they're waiting for their next opportunity to take a course.
Rushmi, any thoughts about that, or?
Absolutely agree with Rosa. Absolutely agree with Sharifa. Adding to their list, I would bring in the skill of discernment. As we add AI to our roles, as we start to become, I don't think, we need to look at AI as replacing us, because the minute you do that, then you have a very different relationship with your tools, with the way that it's supposed to, it can be used. Well, when you look at AI as a collaborator, just like you start to look at it with discernment, the information that comes out. So, to curiosity, like Rosa was saying, you have to be curious. Is this real? Where did this information come from? Where did the data that it is responding to? What is the information? that was fed into here that it's now I have to be discerning for how quickly I can question the validity or question an action that I have to take, as well as with, Sharifa talking about the learning and how we learn. So how do you learn those skills? How do you question that data? How do you start to look at the outputs that the AI tool is providing to you? Because it's meant there to be speed, and it's meant there to help in taking large reams of data. But if we don't understand how it operates, if we don't take a moment to understand the models in which it functions, then we can't collaborate with it. We can't make the right outputs and decisions coming from there. So AI, in cyber, it requires a different skill of discernment, not a taking it at its fact. So that way we can also make better decisions.
And it's interesting because you do hear about AI. Like, is it out to take these jobs here in cybersecurity, or is it just going to make us better, right? And there's been arguments, I think, on both sides of things, because that's going to be something we're going to focus a little bit on the 2026 report, where we've seen some of the stuff is like, for example, Salesforce. When you had Salesforce administrators that would go in and do special coding for companies, now AI is kind of coming in and doing that. But at least, and I'd love to hear your thoughts between the three of you, you're hearing in cybersecurity, it's almost like the bar has been raised a little bit. In other words, the threats have gone up, but also the tools that we can use have also gone up. And so technically all that's happened is the bar went up. But what's your thoughts on that? Just across the board.
Happy to just jump in on that. AI in cyber has been around for a very long time. It's not new. It's not new. People are just talking about it because AI is now prevalent. And I think, we need to lean on the organizations, the managed detect and response organizations, the MDRs. They have been using it for years as their differentiator, homegrown tools, bot tools. We see it in large organizations such as Palo Alto, I'm sorry, I'm not going to get into vendors. I'm going to change. But, you start to look at what is the messaging behind the AI? What is it that it's doing? It's there to support. And I don't think the value of the organizations is at a place where it's ready to replace individuals. As we start to look at shifting economies, possibly companies will try it, but I think it'll be, we're still going to need people to come back and be part of our solutioning. And it's not going to be 100% replacement. I cannot ever, yet in the next 12 months, I cannot see it replacing a lot of individuals.
Do you think it's changing the workforce a little bit? Like, is it?
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's changing, AI for cyber defenders and then cyber defenders of AI.
Yeah.
So what is it that we are looking to build? What are those skills, right? Like AI for cyber. Okay. So what is that tool set and what is that skill set? And then cyber defenders of the AI that is being implemented. That to me seems like a whole new skill set, new jobs, new opportunities for individuals, because the installation of tools and resources that companies are going to bring in, we don't know the threat vector that AI brings as well. So we'll just need more skills, potentially.
Anybody else? Any other thoughts?
I actually think that it does help quite a bit on skills. It simplifies, it supports so much better. For example, I have a use case called account takeover. And what I do is, with all the data that we're ingesting, we have an AI agent that is looking when a person logs in from point A and then log in from point B. Are they geographically close enough? Did they use the same type of browser, the same type of laptop? And then they say, I have a suspicion that somebody took over this account. So it does all the investigation for the analyst and says, I'm pretty sure this is an account takeover. I did all of this. I recommend you that you do these other tasks. And the other task that is recommending for our human analysts to do, I can see that that's going to reduce and reduce and reduce and reduce, right? So the AI agent is going to do more for us. And as we free time, because the AI agent is supporting our analysts, there will be new use cases because now we have to protect the AI models. So new work will come. And again, it's a pipeline. New work comes, I need to automate more. New work comes, I need to automate more. And it's just a cycle. The way I want to handle it is with the can-do attitude. It's like it's doable. In the human being has solved much bigger problems, much bigger challenges. We got this. We can solve this one, right? So it's always a can-do attitude. It's always, if we're a team and we work together, we got this. So that's where I see a lot of opportunity for our veterans, for those people that are looking for our work, for police people that are moving from working on very stressful, on a very different type of nature jobs to corporate jobs. There's a lot of opportunity for that. I think AI with cyber together, I'm hoping that will lead career opportunities for people that don't have as many advantages as others. The place where I always look for people are community colleges. I find some of the most loyal people there.
Interesting. 𝘁𝗵𝗶, any thoughts or?
No, I agree with what both ladies said. I think that, I mean, it's a technology, right? It's a tool. In the same way we work in the technology industry, I think we are in cybersecurity. So typically people who come there, they're not looking for kind of routine roles that are going to repeat and be the same every day. And this is exciting. This is a place that we can lean in, we can learn more, we can potentially innovate. And I think that with excitement always comes a little bit of fear of the unknown, and that's natural and that's human. And as we learn more about the capabilities, we'll become more comfortable, I think, in using it. And I do think just a key function is exactly what Rushmi said, in the sense that having common sense and that logic check, right? Like thinking about whenever the calculator was first introduced, people didn't stop learning how to add, subtract, and multiply, right? You still have to have those fundamental skills. What people did learn how to do was compute at a much faster pace using this tool, right? And they could logic check if, you know, you did 2 times 2 and you got 2,400, that probably wasn't right.
Hey, so I'm actually going to pull a question from the audience. So we got a couple here from Christine Hill. So I thought this was a fascinating one. When investing in career and professional development of professionals, what efforts are you taking to retain those skilled people once they reach a certain level of expertise? So what are little tips and tricks that you've done out there, or solutions of, like, how do you keep them in the door, or do you want them to go somewhere else? Like, what's your thoughts on that?
I can start us off because I haven't done that yet, but so I'll take the lead on this one. I think it's a great question. And, you know, I don't think anyone has the secret sauce, or I don't believe anyone has the magic bullet on this. If you ladies do, great. But what we attempt to do is we talk to our people, right? Managers should be talking to your folks and asking them, like talking to them about what are their career plans, how do they want to grow, what types of problems or challenges are they solving, are they finding satisfaction in those problems or challenges, are those the types of problems or challenges they want to work on. One of the things that I've experienced here at Amazon is we have some built-in kind of mechanisms to do that. So there's some like survey questions that you kind of get every day on a daily basis that are pulse checks that kind of go org-wide that folks can get trends from. But on a human basis, the culture here is one such that if I was like, hey, you know, I am not technical, or I do not come from a technical background, but I'm actually really curious about learning, you know, about how our pen testing process works. I have an opportunity to lean in. Now I won't get access to anything sensitive because no one should trust me with that yet. But I do have an opportunity to expand my scope in a way that makes sense, that gives me opportunities to learn by working in proximity to work that is comfortable to me, such that I can then make myself competitive in certain ways and drive my own career path. And to me, people will stay with an organization when they are feeling challenged, valued, and seen. And those are the things we try to index on with our employers by talking to them, making sure we have interesting challenges, which, work with a large company. It's nice if you can have access to those potential opportunities. And then when you see something or someone doing something well, we are training our managers to be vocal about what you see, so you value the hidden work that people do in order to keep the company afloat and make it run and make it do what it makes.
I love your answer, 𝘁𝗵𝗿. I really love your answer. We want people to live. We want people to be excited about what they work on. And the job, like 𝘁𝗵𝗿 says, to change. So as long as they are learning, then they should be staying. At the moment that you stop learning, go somewhere else. Go somewhere else, because you are not going to have an interest anymore. Your curiosity is going to go down. So what I believe is critical is, are you still learning? If you are still learning, you are in the right job. If you are not learning, it's time to move on.
And it's interesting because I've pulled up some of these are some of the data that came from the workforce report. And so what's the most important culture fit qualities? And if you notice, problem solving is super high on this list. What's actually number one is working well within a team, which I thought was fascinating to see, because that is something, it actually came up in a bunch of the case studies and things along those lines of, hey, I've had situations where I've hired somebody, they were probably the top of their field, but I couldn't get them to work well within the whole team. And in some ways, I needed somebody who fit the corporate culture more than anything. I don't know if you have any thoughts about that between the three of you, but I know that was something that came up quite a bit. If you see on here, written and verbal communications, leadership qualities, attention to detail, you kind of seeing a little bit of a pattern. It's interesting, time management was actually on the bottom of the list, which I don't know what that's saying about our industry, other than we all work like crazy hours. But love to kind of hear your thoughts on that.
I'm just going to jump in really quickly on this one. I think, looking at that team, working well in a team is, I'm sorry, there's people in my office. If you hear background noise, the team part, cybersecurity is a team sport. So if you're somebody who thinks that you're going to be isolated and on your own, this is not the career path for you necessarily, because you have to interact with your customer, you have to interact with your peer, you have to problem solve together, you need to escalate together, you need to look at problem sets together, and then you need to question it, it is such a great place to be able to learn from one another. It's a great career path if you really enjoy peer-to-peer learning and taking on new projects, and you get to listen to what else is happening elsewhere, and your eyes are always open because you're looking for patterns, and patterns can only be detected if you've asked the other person, well, what is the patterns you're seeing? What's the difference? So I think encouraging cyber as a team sport, I totally understand why that's number one for culture fit.
Any other thoughts? Or
I'm going to adjust. I 100% agree with you that we have to interact with many people, especially the person that got the alert, right? There is one job role that I do see that by nature, that role people like to work on their own, and is the forensic analyst. The people that are in CSAR, that are investigating incidents, they're very much about, leave me alone, let me do my thing. And it works. It works. We usually complement that person then with somebody else that does all the interactions. And it's perfect because that type, when you're doing forensics and you're an investigator, you do need to really go deep into the data, and their terabytes of data, so they do need a lot of time on their own. But I agree with you. Overall, it's a team sport. So very much, I just wanted to make sure that if there were forensic people on the audience, they knew that we understand that they need to work on their own most of the time, and we're okay with it.
And so I'm going to move on to another question, unless 𝘁𝗵𝗿, you had anything you wanted to add to that. So this is actually from Vanessa, and hopefully I don't butcher your last name, Zari, I believe it is. And so her question is, so we're going to go back a little bit to AI. How can the issue of AI screening filters filtering out qualified candidates be addressed? But she also asks, what strategies would you recommend for candidates to improve their chances of making a stronger connection and securing an interview? So what are the tips and tricks that you think that are out there of like, how do I stick out where I now get that interview? Like, how do I, and now it's gotten even a little bit more scary because of AI. Like, do I use AI to try to figure out how to have AI pull me up, or like what suggestions do you have out there in the marketplace? So it looks like 𝘁𝗵𝗿, you're kind of shaking your head a little bit.
Yeah, I listen. My thought is, in the same way that we talked about threat actors evolving the threat landscape, having access to AI, but also as defenders, we have access to those tools as well. You have access to AI as well, as you are considering how you are going to represent yourself to various businesses and companies. You should use what you have access to. Use the tools. You should absolutely be making sure your resume is best positioned according to the tools and the resources that you have access to be competitive, because others are. And then you can acknowledge that what you should not do is use AI and pretend that you did not use AI. You should be vocal about your usage of AI in order to emphasize how it made you more efficient, how it's helped you spark more creativity, or how it helped you innovate in certain paths by taking care of some operational or, foundational things for you. But we are not, from our perspective, it's a tool out there. It's a tool that you can use to make yourself more competitive. You should leverage it.
I was listening to a recent podcast. In the mornings when I'm driving to work, I will always listen to cyber news, right? And I was listening to, and when I drive home, I listen to AI. So that's kind of my routine. And what one of them was saying, one of the CISOs that was getting interviewed was saying, and I really like what he said, is they get an interview, and they don't have a skill that I'm looking for. My immediate question is, what are you going to do to solve that gap? Because you see if they have the spark or not, right? It's very easy to read people when you're looking for people. For those that are looking for an interview, it's being ready to answer those difficult questions. I do not have the skill, but if you give me a second interview, give me the skill that you ask about, give me a second interview in a week, and I'll tell you everything I learned. If somebody tells that to me when I'm interviewing them, 100% guarantee I am going to interview that person again, because they're up to the challenge. They're not saying, oh, no, I don't have the skill, I have no idea. I want people with curiosity. I want people that says, I'm up to the challenge. I don't know the answer, but ask me in a week and I'll surprise you. That's the type of people that I want on my team.
I used to always think of the motto, fake it until you make it. If that, Rosa, I don't know if that kind of is a good, in other words, hey, you got to just step yourself out there and do it.
Yeah. I don't go with, I'm not a fan of fake it until you make it. It's not my style. My style is recognize that I have the gap, but give me a week and I'm going to surprise you.
And Rushmi, do you have anything to add with that? Or because we're getting toward the end, so I'm going to do a lightning round here.
I'll just add 2 seconds. If you're struggling and you can't, you're trying to get through the applicant tracking systems and all of the mechanisms there, and go to events. Like, you're going to be one of 1,000 individuals. Go. I'm not sure if in the States you have B-sides. I think you have
Yep.
B-sides. Like, go to these events, go to the capture the flags, meet the recruiters, because recruiters are there. Go put yourself out there, go shake a hand, talk about your hands-on experience from 𝘁𝗵𝗶𝘀, talk about your capture the flag, go talk about your lab experience, go talk about what you've heard on a podcast, go meet with real people. So when you give them your resume, they know who you are and they can meet with you. I know the applicant tracking systems are getting frustrating because they're getting really, really tough, but you can hack it by going and meeting people in real life.
So I appreciate that. I'm going to put up here, just if you wanted, there's a QR code to pull up the workforce research report, which actually has case studies, and you can actually pull up the 2024 version. So Rushmi and Rosa are both part of 2025, and Sharifa, you were part of the inaugural version here in 2024. So I'm going to finish up here with a very lightning round, like 30 seconds or more. If there is one thing in the cyber workforce you could fix, what would that be? Who wants to take that one on? Oh, Rushmi?
It's not really the cyber workforce. I think it's really on the development of the workforce in the pipeline. We just need employers that understand the skills of what are they hiring for and advertising. Because here in Canada, we see entry-level roles at 5 to 6 years experience. And oh my God, come on. Like we don't need that, because in Europe, they put entry-level roles as 0 years experience, and they are getting great candidates. They are hiring quickly, and they're going to dominate over North America. So we need to figure this out of how we hire and how we go and look for our talent.
I can build off of that, because I kind of agree with you. I think we need some sort of a partnership that could help sort through the noise right now of help us get on an aligned language. What is entry level in the States? What are some of the foundation of core skill sets? How do we compare the different providers, what are the things? What makes one certification good? What makes another one not, etc. Because as a person who's trying to break into the field, I think there are a lot of people who may be getting taken advantage of, or who may be missing access and opportunities because they're having difficulty sorting through what's a real opportunity versus what's not. So some sort of guiding force to just help people sort through the noise, I think, would help us with people who are experienced in the security industry and not leaving feeling resentment for their experience or misled for their experience when they try to get it.
And Rosa, do you want to finish up?
Yeah. If I could fix something, is the appreciation for the hard work that the team does. Many times on the enterprise world we need people that do strategy, and those are the ones that are gonna get promoted, because over here is just hard work, but it's just busy work. Leave it there. The truth is that the enterprises survive because of the hardworking people that are doing the work. So for me, it's all about recognition of those ones that deliver on high stress jobs, on highly stressful jobs like the SOC. When some of the teams that have more of a attitude that SOC is an entry level, for me, yeah, but it's the most important level. That's the team that makes the rest of all the cyber jobs have a job. That's the one team that cannot fail. So if I could fix something, but I think it's in the industry in general, is a recognition for the entry level jobs that are actually the ones that are providing the revenue to the companies, and for such, funding the jobs that the rest of us have.
Appreciate that, Rosa. And so just here, I know Elizabeth's going to be finishing up. If you want to, here's our QR code to be able to pull everything up on the workforce report. There's quite a bit more. And Elizabeth, I'm going to hand it over to you to kind of finish us up. Oh, you're on mute.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. This was wonderful, really informative, and thank you to everyone who attended today. Hope everyone has a great rest of your day. Thank
Yes.
you.
And thank you to all the panelists. This was great. This was very informative. So thank you so much.
Thank you.